Good morning or good afternoon to attendees joining from various parts of the world. Today's session, I would like to take the time, firstly, to extend a welcome to you all on behalf of BONARD to this webinar. It's a webinar part of our country webinar series, which we aim to illustrate and provide an overview and foment a discussion on the fundamentals and landscape for student housing in specific markets. For those of you who do not know me, my name is David Navarro. I'm a business development manager at BONARD. And with great pleasure, I shall be providing an overview of the French student housing market. Our presentation aims to outline data and findings based on BONARD research. Subsequently, this will help us facilitate the panel discussion. So just as a brief overview, today's agenda will comprise as follows. Firstly, we will commence with the market briefing and presentation. This will help showcase key data and trends on the French market. This will include topics such as demand, the current and future supply as well of student housing within this market. I'm finishing the presentation. It is with great pleasure that we will have the panel discussion. It is very important, and we will be sharing some key market leaders, discussions and points, and they will help us better understand the market dynamics and to engage in a fruitful discussion. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with BONARD, we are a market intelligence and strategic development firm which specializes in the rented residential asset classes. The company was established in 2007. We have more than 10 years experience within student housing, but not only just student housing. Over recent years, we have expanded our coverage to other rented residential asset classes such as build-to-rent, senior living, co-living, and service apartments. We are based in Vienna, with 2 other European offices and 1 branch in China. We are now 90 specialists. Within our achievements, we have conducted over 700 projects, such as location and project assessments, various consultations, other forms of deliveries, and some critical analysis as well. Regarding our data capabilities and expertise, we are covering over 260 geographies on the municipality level across Europe, Asia, Australia, Latin America, and Canada. And we have been tracking over 14,000 assets and over 2 million beds. Our main goal is to support our clients, leverage our knowledge and experience, as well as assist them through their investment and development processes through our data and our research. Our affiliations and memberships include the RICS and the SOMR. So without further ado, let's dive into the presentation and explore and understand in further depth the French market. So I would like to kindly welcome you all to this new session of BONARD's Country Webinars. It's a series dedicated to sharing our knowledge for the most sought after student housing markets in Europe. The data and insights will be presented to you are based on BONARD's in-house and in-field data and research, including as well conversations with local players to understand further. So we have previously presented Germany and will now focus our conversation on France. We hope that the following presentation and data will help you have a better understanding of the French market, its dynamics, and it will serve basically as a subsequent understanding for the panel. So before we commence, a couple of key data points regarding our knowledge of the French PBC. We have coverage of the 13 biggest cities. These include Greater Paris, Lyon, Marseille, Montpellier, and more. And this spans over 1,000 assets, cumulatively presenting more than 230,000 beds to students within these cities. 31,000 beds in pipeline, and there are over 490 universities and colleges providing quality education. So let us commence understanding the demand in France, as we can observe the historical timetable displaying historical growth of international students in the UK, in Germany, France, and Italy. Over 300,000 international students have attended universities, colleges, or educational institutions in France during the academic year 2022 and 2023. Compared to 2017 and 2018, we have perceived a 2.8 increase over the years, which leads us to believe it is an attractive destination for internationals. There are also joint efforts to foment the attractiveness of visiting and studying in France. For example, France is the latest country to set a long-term goal for building its foreign enrollment. It's a new international recruitment strategy supported by the French government. The French government is also introducing the new Choose France strategy, which sets out to simplify the process of applying for student visas. And it's also created the France Visas portal, which expands online services for visa applicants. The Choose France strategy also aims to double the number of students in English taught programs in France. This initiative is helping studies in is the French Excellence in Europe, but this is also specifically for postgraduate studies. Now, it's important as well to mention the long-term trend in habits of French students, as 2/3 of French students live away from home. So this is a very large share of domestic mobile students. The majority of these students want to live in PBSA. Thus, France constitutes a market that is strongly driven by nationals who move to different cities to study and potentially live in the long term. Let's now have a look at the development of the overall student population in France. So within the graph, we can see a moderate growth in both total and international students over the years. With just shy of 3 million students in total during the 2022-2023 academic year, 10% of these internationals are looking to enrich their studies and submerge themselves further in the French culture. So foreign enrollment in France grew more quickly last year. As a result, it's effectively making it the 7th ranked study destination in the world. Now in France, international students consist of approximately 14% of the total enrollment. The largest group of international students come from sub-Saharan Africa, 24% of the international student body. And North Africa represents 23%. And finally, Europe is 25%. Now, notably, Morocco, Algeria, and China are among the top countries that are sending students to France. The number of international students from sub-Saharan Africa has increased by 34% over the last 5 years, while international students have grown by 10%. So as a future projection, the French government aims to reach 500,000 international students by 2027. And this is part of the Bienvenue en France strategy, which seeks to enhance France's appeal as a study destination. Within the graph as well, in the table on the right-hand side specifically, we can also see further breakdown of the different countries of origin for students that are heading to France to study. So Lille, Toulouse, and Rennes and Marseille showcase above average growth rates in the international student population. Predictably, the largest French cities have the greatest number of international students. However, Grenoble stands out because of a 20% international students and a compound annual growth of 1.3% for the past 5 years. Lille and Marseille show the most promising potential with a 3.4 and a 5.8 yearly growth respectively. It's compared to to the national level average of 1.7%. Now, when it comes to demand and talking about specifically Erasmus, France is also positively impacted by the number of participants in Erasmus and/or exchange programs. The programs attract distinct groups of international learners and students who choose France as their destination for academic exchange, basically as well to enjoy the culture, the lifestyle, the language, and the education. Erasmus programs provide students with the chance to study abroad in diverse countries, and France is ranked within the top most attractive markets for international students. Other programs and initiatives that are fomenting awareness and are generating attraction to the French market are the scholarships, such as the Amba Dalmia Scholarship and the Sharpak. So master programs are also seeing an increase in scholarships. Now in 2022, there has been a notorious increase in the exchange program participants heading to France. This compared to the pre-COVID, of course. So we can say that this 18% increase between 2022 and 2019 is in due part to the different exchange programs and scholarships that are allowing students to leave their countries and study abroad. Let's now discuss the supply of PBSA within France. There are currently 1,618 PBSA assets or student residences. They provide 233,819 beds cumulatively in total. The larger percent of the market share is held by non-private student accommodations, with a total of 64% of these residences. Now, when referring to the bed count, The allocation is distributed between 85,000 private beds and 148,000 non-private beds. Hence, 36% of the beds are for private student accommodations. Now, it's important to mention the numbers displayed do not refer to all of France. There are many more assets, there are many more beds within the market. These numbers that we are projecting are representing the 13 cities that we cover, which are the biggest student hubs, and also the beds within these cities. Hence, we can see then that the graph represent other similar markets and the distribution of their private PBSAs versus the non-private ones. So these are within selected cities of the UK, Spain, Germany, and Italy. And this is mainly for comparative purposes and for understanding. Now, to understand the level of saturation within a market, we refer to the benchmark net provision rate. Now, this metric stands for the maximum share of international and domestic mobile students in a city, which should be willing to live in a PBSA under current market conditions. So this indicator takes into consideration factors such as the quality of existing PBSA stock in terms of its age, the amenities, the ownership structure, occupancy levels, and the nature of the local residential property market. Now, additionally, to further collect and interpret, BONARD conducts multiple student surveys, which help us gain further insights and inform our calculations. Now, when talking about missing beds in the markets that we cover, it's evident Greater Paris region has the largest deficit of beds within France. This is just under 200,000 beds to reach the net provision rate benchmark. After Greater Paris, the cities with the largest bed deficits are Lille, Lyon, and Bordeaux, with over 45,000 beds missing in each city. Strasbourg, Montpellier, Toulouse, Grenoble, Rennes, and Nantes have also similar bed deficits, oscillating between 35 and 15,000 beds. Now, when referring to offered amenities within the residences, there is a notable evolution of the product offering and a significant shift towards higher quality and more modern, high-price segment of the market. While laundry facilities, multifunctional spaces, and bike storages remain common and are highly relevant offerings, recent trends reveal there is an increased integration of amenities such as terraces, outdoor areas, gyms, game rooms within PBSA developments launched after 2020. Now we can also emphasize that more often these security measures and sustainable approaches are attractive, and they're much more frequent topics to be considered by PBSA. Now, on the contrary, there is a notable decrease in prevalence of communal kitchens. This can be attributed to the growing popularity of studio accommodations. Additionally, amenities like conference rooms, music rooms are becoming less popular and less prevalent. Some of these reasons are due to the increasing and ever-changing needs and preferences of students. Developers hence prioritize the amenities that cater to the students and their needs. So overall, these trends indicate the strategic response by PBSA providers to meet the evolving demands of students in France, and hence aligning their offerings with the expectations of the modern market. When talking about supply, specifically the age of total stock, France is characterized by a higher portion of recently opened stock. So within the chart, we can see that a little over half of the residences have been built in the last decade, which is not the case in other markets, such as Germany, Spain, and Italy. Now, 24% of the French residences are between 10 and 14 years old, and France has also a notably low proportion of residences that are 20 or plus years, with only 11%, which is compared to over 30% in in Spain, Germany, and Italy. So we can see hence a big difference. So for the above reasons, we can conclude that France can be considered a nearly developed market when talking about the age of the stock. So over the past 10 years, mid-sized developments were largely predominant for the construction of private PBSAs. Now, however, as with the changing needs and preferences of students that are on the rise, also there are important shifts regarding the sizes of the assets. So we are noticing a shift towards larger developments, those which have over 400 beds. Now we can see a whopping 18% increase in these types of developments within the next 5 years compared to the predominant stock in the last 10 years. So as a result of these changes in sizes of developments, there will be an impact in the share of smaller developments, those with less than 100 beds, so which is set to decline over the next years. And as a result, these types of assets will be only 1/5 of future constructions. Within the cities we cover regarding competitive landscape for private supply, there are currently 85,196 private PBSA beds, at 36% of the operational stock, and hence more than 630 private operational assets, cumulatively by private PBSA brands. Now, the larger portion of the student housing accommodations are public ones, as we mentioned earlier. The private PBSA market landscape is characterized by the dominance of 49% of the private bed portfolio by 6 major operators. Subsequently, the rest of the share is distributed among 41 other providers. Now, this other distribution is a scenario which typically promotes competitive environment where firms differentiate themselves through quality, innovation, and customer service. Now, the top 10 providers of operational beds within France are Studéa, Les Étudiants. Now, these first two I have mentioned represent 27% of the private operational beds. After we have 20 campus, Studélit, Les Belles-Années, Cardinal Campus, Uxco, Nemea, Apartitude, Clay, and New First Campus. Let's talk now about the rental growth compared to inflation. Now, in France, since 2019, both the rents and inflation have experienced significant growth, with basically rent increases rising from a 1.1% in 2019 to 5.3% in 2024. This hints of a responsive and growing market, which has high occupancies. On average, we're seeing 98 to 99%. Now, while inflation forecast for 2024 presents a positive outlook for the economy, it remains uncertain whether rent growth will follow this downward trend. Now, the specifics for France. In order to offset rising rents within PBSA, the state incentives are invaluable. Therefore, housing allowances are being given to students, which are basically around 200 euros per month. And this provides a decisive in supporting students when looking at student housing, as this basically becomes their first choice for accommodation. Let's finally dive into the future of PBSA stock in France. So within the next years, it is expected that almost 35,000 beds distributed across 154 assets are currently under construction or in planning, which will only increase the estimated private provision by 8.2%. Thus, this still leaves a deficit in stock and beds to address the increasing demand. The majority of the stock in pipeline are part of the private initiative, 106 private assets and just over 23,000 beds. All values are cumulative for the 13 cities that we track. Now, apart from this list, BONARD monitors numerous other projects in pipeline, and based on our research, it appears that the market is unlikely to reach a relative saturation point in the next couple of years. Now, while the market is competitive, there is still ample opportunities for new entrants. This next slide provides an overview of historical PBSA prime yields, exit yields over the span of various years and for different cities. So, as discussed earlier in the presentation, France presents a robust market for PBSA development. It boasts a high and a growing student population, and PBSA beds compared to other markets such as Germany, Italy, and Spain. However, it also exhibits a lower share of private provision rates, which within our covered cities. This indicates a significant potential for growth within the PBSA market in France, especially for private initiatives. Considering the potential of the market and following successful property tours we've launched previously in Poland, Italy, Spain, Germany, and Canada, we have decided to organize the next stop of this initiative in France, specifically Paris and Montpellier. During the tour, participants will have the opportunity to experience student housing assets within 2 days. They will have a better understanding of the market, be able to network with local stakeholders, and very importantly, to gain insights from direct asset managers. For more information, do not hesitate to contact us. We'd be more than happy to share further details. I would also like to bring to your attention the efforts that our team has done and our know-how to streamline access to our data. So over recent years, we have developed an interactive PBSA platform, which currently consists of all of our in-house data and KPIs for more than 14,000 assets, and this is in over 265 cities. This comes along with information about the portfolios, transactions, yields, and the pipeline. It is being used by key stakeholders and dozens of subscribers. So if you would like to get a demo access, feel free to reach out to us as well. Now, we hope you have enjoyed and found value in the data and the research that has been presented today. The recording of the webinar along the presentation will be distributed. This will be over the next couple of days to all the registrants. So now, without further ado, let's jump to our awaited panel discussion. This will be with the key market leaders, and we will engage in a fruitful conversation regarding the French market. So if I could kindly ask our panelists to turn on their cameras. Wonderful. Perfect. So I would firstly start with asking each of you to kindly introduce yourself and also explain a little bit more the companies that you represent. So I'll leave the floor open for you, gentlemen.
So maybe I will start at on. So first of all, thank you, David, and all the BONARD team for the invitation and giving us the opportunity to give our view on the French PBSA market. So I'm Julien Dunant, living director at Hines France. So maybe a word on Hines. Hines is a global private real estate investment company founded in 1957, operating in 27 countries all over the world. The group is currently managing $93 billion of asset over the world. In France, Hines is acting as a real estate developer and investor, either developing project or buying them through forward funding. Our living strategy is currently focused on large build-to-rent opportunities and purpose-built student accommodation, PBSA schemes, with a strong support from our in-house pan-European fund, mainly our core fund fund, which has 1 billion equity currently, and the value add fund, which has 1.6 billion equity. So we just to explain what we've done in the past years, we have signed two PBSA deals in Paris Greater Area, which represent 1,300 beds currently operated by our in-house operator, which is called Aparto. And we have an additional 3,000 beds under exclusivity to come.
Thank you, Julien.
Okay, maybe I can follow up on that. Thank you so much, David and the team, for this invitation. I'm Sébastien Morisot, Senior Director working for EQT Exeter, which is the real estate arm of private equity group EQT. EQT is a Swedish firm. We actually celebrated our 30th birthday this year. We have roughly 230 billion of assets under management, out of which 32 billion are real estate assets, mainly across two verticals. One is logistics. We have lots of logistic assets across the globe, actually, more than 1 million square meters in France. And the second pillar is living. And on that, we have more than 9,000 beds across Europe. In France, we have been pretty active in the build-to-rent sector as well. We bought more than 1,500 units. And of course, in the PBSA market as well. Last year, we acquired our first two assets in Bordeaux because, and I think we'll go through it later, it's a very exciting market and a fast-growing market, actually. And we're also working on a strong pipeline and sign one project before the summer break.
Thank you, Sebastian. Roman, last but not least.
Many thanks, BONARD, and Vit for this insightful presentation. I'm Romain Venturi, investment manager at Axco Group. So I've been working in the company for 3.5 years after previous experiences in hotel investments and investment banking. Axco Group is a French student platform, majority owned by Brookfield. We are investor, developer, and operator of PBSA all across France. So we have close to 15,000 beds in the portfolio and 75 residences. So we've been operating for a bit more than 20 years in the PBSA market in France. And we are now structured with two main brands, Oxco Students for standard residences with good levels of services, and ECLA, which is our flagship brand with larger residences, lots of services in the main cities in France. We target to expand and reach 25,000 beds in the coming years. So continuing the development. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you on board and looking forward to the discussion we're about to have. So let me start with a general question. Have you noticed any increased interest from investors towards student housing in France? Was it different to last year? Perhaps we could start with Roman, if you could give us your insights on this.
Yes, well, definitely. We've seen increased activity from international investors mainly, and this is probably due to the maturing of the market. I think first we're seeing right now investors who entered the market 3-4 years ago. They're only starting to concretize with projects getting off the ground. So we are seeing them more and more, in the operating business. We have more competitors lately. Second, there has been a renewed interest recently for the asset class, and specifically France. As you mentioned, it's one of Europe's biggest markets with high levels of internal mobility between regions and cities. So there's a huge demand for student housing, and so it's attracting lots of interest, and we're seeing that. I have to say, it can be hard to enter the market. There are some very specific things to consider, but yeah, I'm saying more interest, definitely.
Maybe if I can just add something, I think investors are more and more interested in this PBSA market, especially in France, because it's less regulated than free housing market, and for investor it gives more clarity on the market, and as it is also a very undersupplied market, there is a very interesting trend that investors are trying to catch.
Yeah, and I mean, also, like, if you look at things like historically in France, like the PBSA schemes, they were like developed by the big names we know, Nexity, Altara, and so on. And then they would use their own like subsidiary to put like a 12-year lease on the assets and either sell it through a block sale to core investors or sell it unit by unit to private investors. And what we have seen over the past 2 to 3 years actually is that lots of new entrants in the markets are happy and were, for example, to put management contract in place to actually have a stronger control on the operations and drive the NOI growth more accurately. So it's a very dynamic market at the moment, and we see lots of new names actually entering like every quarter on the market processes.
It's very interesting to hear that indeed the French market is a market very attractive for new players to enter. We're seeing it, as you mentioned, gentlemen, within developments, right, within interest to penetrate this market and to grow effectively. Let's go now to country specifics, right? So a question that popped in our heads would be, what are some of the major or the main challenges and risks that individuals that are considering to enter the French market should be aware of? Perhaps if I could get Julian's thoughts on this question.
I think the main challenge in this market is first to find the right opportunities, the right location with a good catchment area and a good weak equipment rate. That's not so obvious in our market. The land are getting really rare, and opportunity to develop and to refurbish buildings are quite difficult as well. So finding these opportunities are quite a challenge, and also to find a zoning which is compliant with a PBSA scheme. PBSA is to be developed in what is called a sub destination, which is called in French hébergement. It's not so easy to find the right location and the right zoning in the same time, and also to have the political support. Political support is really important, especially when we are discussing about large-scale PBSA schemes. As Sebastian was mentioning, PBSA in France has been developed by a unit-by-unit sale, and it was usually, let's say, 100 units at maximum, and now we are discussing about more than 400, 500 units. So it's definitely a challenge to get the support. So that's basically the changes.
Yeah.
Julien, I totally agree with the zoning part actually, because we're focused as far as, I guess, employ you on like residential zoning, not commercial zonings. Because I mean, it's a very domestic market in the end, right? There's like 3 million students, but like 10% are foreign students. So technically, the purchasing power of the student is not unlimited. We don't see like people coming from abroad with like vast financial resources. So we have to make sure that the student can actually get the French subsidies when they study, and therefore the only way to get this is to have like a scheme which is residential, not commercial.
Yeah, I fully agree with you guys. On the housing allowance, it's obviously key because, you know, as you said, it's a highly domestic market. I would maybe add something related to what you said, Julien, in the previous question, on the freedom that you have in this market. It's a bit less regulated in some ways than other markets, but also that comes with uncertainty, I would say, if you compare France to other markets. In some markets, you have leases that are fixed term and with no possibility to extend. Here, there are several types of leases, but usually it's just you're going for 1 year with tacit reconduction and just 1 month's notice. So you can only get it right with experience, you know, getting the turnover, and so that's also one aspect I would add on top of all you said, guys, especially development process and relationship with municipalities that are really important. We are also going for, whenever possible, the residential license type. But you know, we have some competitors operating on the commercial license. So that's also another way of doing business, and you know, with different implications. But yeah.
And just one last one for me is as well to be able to find the right like operator and setup actually, because given the scale we're all targeting, we all want to expand the platforms we have in France. You need to work with like operators that are strong enough to accompany you over long term. And that's the key challenge as well, because when we look at like institutional investors like we need to have an operator that is like speaking English, producing the reports we want, able to have like monthly reporting as well with us, weekly data produced and so on. And it's not always easy to find the right partner in France for that.
Extremely valuable insights, gentlemen. We agree with all of the points. And also, it's important to mention and to think about it, that even though these are some of the challenges and risks, they also present viable areas of opportunity to be able to develop further the French PBSA market. Let's jump on to the next question. So based on your knowledge of France's PBSA landscape, do you consider any smaller markets as hidden gems? Do you believe that larger cities rather still carry the bigger investment potential? Perhaps, Sebastian, if we can start with you.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, in France, you have 20 academies that have more than 45,000 students. And so we tend to be active in most of those. Of course, Paris being the largest stock and the largest pipeline you can see. We look at a lot of projects over there. But for example, the first deal we did were in Bordeaux, because Bordeaux has more than 100,000 students. And the provision rate is only like 9% over there. So there is difficulties to enter the market because it's very limited and constrained, the city being like listed for its vast majority. And we see that over the past 5 years, lots of like private schools actually opened campuses over there. So we tend to focus on like cities that are of course, top 20, but especially those with like a high, I would say high growing student population and enough purchasing power as well. And when you look at some cities, for example, Nancy, which is like on the east of France, I guess you guys didn't correlate because it's a bit too small, but it's like in the top 20 cities of the country, and there is like no new development over there. So I guess the idea is to, of course, keep an eye on Paris, keep an eye on Bordeaux, Lille, Toulouse, Marseille, but also remain focused on where students actually move. And back in 2018, when the French government changed the whole system for students, which is now called Parcoursup, what we saw is that last year, 20.6% of the students in France actually studied far from their mom and pop's house. So students are moving across the country, and therefore we need to be there and to be waiting for them.
Yeah, it's a specific, I think, thing to the French market. Maybe students are highly mobile between cities because they go across the country to for university to get the right university, and that means there are some cities that can be under the radar. For instance, you have cities with disproportionate number of students relative to their size. I've made the exercise of doing the ratio, and if you take the top 5, it's going to be Rennes, Amiens, Angers, Nancy, as you said, and Montpellier. These cities, you have 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 inhabitants who are students. And so these are huge student markets. Some of them are well, supplied with PSA. Others are less supplied. So this is, good. So this could be considered hidden gems. I would say also cities with prestigious business schools and engineering schools, because those are attracting the students with the most purchasing power. You can think of maybe Lille, Bordeaux, these kind of cities. And obviously cities with low provision rates, but it's going to be Paris and the biggest cities overall.
Maybe just a word on my side. I agree with everything that has been said. Just with regard to the investor that we have, they are favoring bigger deals, so it's more difficult to find big deals in the region. So it's more or less opportunities, I would say, between 100 and 200 units, which is really difficult for our investor to invest in. So if we have the opportunity to put in all these metropolitan cities a bigger scheme, then we would definitely go there. But it's really difficult market for this question of size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you look at Lyon, for example, which is like number 3 in France, basically based on the population, or number 2, it depends. It's super difficult to find schemes that can reach like above 200 units over there. It's like we have been screening the market for like 3 years, and there's almost nothing over there, either new developments or existing ones.
There's maybe something to say is that lots of developers in the past, they tended to prefer selling to private investors, retail investors, and now they are turning to block sales. But sometimes with the schemes that they had launched in the past, and so we are ending up with what they know, what they can do, what they've been doing for 20 years, which means PBSA with 100 to 150 beds, which falls a little bit in the lower end of the spectrum. At Axco, we take the chance to continuing to expand on those lower sizes, but I guess most international investors would prefer to target bigger ones. But if you're flexible, it can be an opportunity as well.
Very interesting. So to all attendees, a couple of names of cities have been thrown out there, so you can start looking into them if you're interested in France as a market. Now, I wanted to continue our discussion as well in regard to the schemes, right? So bigger schemes, larger scale is interesting. And also, Julian, what you mentioned earlier is very interesting regarding one of the challenges being to find a good opportunity. So let's discuss brownfield versus greenfield. Now, many stakeholders recognize opportunities in brownfield developments. Now, do you view this as a potential catalyst for new project pipelines, Do you consider greenfield developments to be more compelling option? Or on another point, do you see redevelopment of the distressed properties as already active or upcoming for student housing in France?
I would say that brownfield is very interesting, but most of the time, brownfield opportunities are located in an area which is not suitable for student accommodation. Most of the time, it's a bit far from the city. It was not a relevant location, and almost all the time, not in a good zoning as well. So it means that you have to depollute the site, then you have to change the zoning. So it's definitely a good play for investor who have the opportunity to go for a long business plan with zoning risk. But if the location it doesn't fit with a good catchment area, to us it's quite difficult to go to brownfield. But we are more focused on refurbishing office building which are close to the cities and within the public transportation with the catchment area and equipment which are most of the time between. When we look at Paris area, most of the building that we have been looking at are they have a provision rate which is between 4% and 6% when we look at the number of beds divided by the number of total students. So we are more focused on refurbishing than looking at brownfield. Brownfield, we mainly look at it for a logistic play.
Thank you, Julian. Perhaps Sebastian and Ramon, if you'd like to add something.
No, of course. And I mean, we've been looking at of course, brand new developments as well, because it suits better what we want to do, which is to bring the international, I would say, standard of PBSA in France, which means lots of common areas, very efficient as well, studios or rooms. We want to get the best levels, so we want to make sure that it's affordable, sustainable, of course, up to the international standards. And so it's not always easy actually to convert an office building or to redevelop an asset and bring this quality actually afterwards. So we look at projects like this, of course, but we found so far that the best were to acquire new developments, even if we have a pipeline of both. And I would say as well, one thing to keep in mind is that if you look at two assets that were actually redeveloped recently, one was delivered just before the summer in Puteaux. It's called Lilo. It was a former office building called Guillaume. Actually, they tear down the whole building and redevelop a new scheme. And same for one in Courbevoie that is under construction at the moment. They basically knocked down the existing office building and just redevelop it entirely. So, I mean, I would say technically, we can see that some projects, some reconversion projects are attractive, but in real life, what we see is that most of the time, they actually tear down the building and just redevelop them entirely.
Well, actually, on the Lilo project, I'm not sure that we would be able now to demolish completely the building. I'm not sure that the city would allow it, and I'm not sure that investor would allow it. Most of our schemes are now targeting net zero carbon, and if you demolish a building and then rebuild it, then it's getting more and more difficult to reach this environmental target. So I fully agree with you. New building is completely it's more suitable to all the amenities and all the rooms that we want to develop, but I'm not sure that it's well, on our side, we are fully convinced that refurbishment is the future of PBSA.
Yeah. In our side at Oxco, we are happy to have already refurbished one big residence. So it used to be an office headquarter in Noisy-le-Grand, Paris area. With our internal development arm, we redeveloped and converted the office building into a PBSA scheme of more than 1,000 beds. So it's a big one. One of the main challenges in that type of scheme is the optimization of floor plans, because usually when you have an office building, you have really wide buildings with low access to natural light. So that's key when considering that kind of scheme. We are really happy to have done that in Noisy-le-Grand. The residence is almost full this year. And we're actually doing the same again in the suburbs of Geneva. It's currently under refurbishment. What we've learned in those projects is that it can be really attractive in terms of carbon saving, because you're not tearing down the whole building. It also comes with challenges, and one of the main challenges is the energy efficiency of the building. If you're keeping most of the envelope and the floors, so that's why now we are taking down the facades, rebuilding the whole thing and changing the systems. But I think there are things to opportunities to get. It's not an easy one. I mean, you need some experienced developers and building companies that know how to do, because there's some very specific things for PBSA and very few examples.
Maybe I would just add something. I think the most important challenge that we have for refurbishment is the cost of the building when you want to buy it, because it used to be an office, so the owner has to approve a decrease of the value of this building when we buy it. So that's the main challenge. All that Romain you were just mentioning, I think this is technical part that we can manage, and that we are able to do, and that's what we are currently doing in Charente. Or maybe we'll discuss a bit more after. But we are refurbishing this building, which was a former office building, and we're removing the facade, because as we are targeting net zero carbon, we have to manage all the efficiency of the building. So that's something we were doing.
Maybe I should add that with current policies, and also the net zero artificialization of the soil, which is also pushed in many municipalities, and it's a target. So we are also encouraged to go into that direction, and I think that there are some opportunities, but quite hard to find.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's cover demand. So with some destinations imposing caps on international students, while France aims to attract 500,000 students by 2027, do you anticipate a significant increase demand for student housing in France? So how depending is the private PBSA market on international students right now? I guess I could leave the question open to whoever wants to contribute.
Well, maybe I can say a word, even as Romain is more experienced in that. But I would say that currently we are missing something like 70,000 students to reach the 500,000 student international students you were mentioning. So there is definitely a trend where we will see international students coming in France. And what is also interesting is that we are seeing more and more university and campuses getting good rate in the international tables, for instance, like Saclay. And we are still seeing also cost of the studio which are cheaper than in other countries, and also the complexity to get visa in some other destination, like in the UK, for instance. So all that with an additional point, which is that we have more and more English course in France. With that, we see a very, very positive trend for international in France. So we are really confident, and we definitely think that, for instance, our brand Aparto is definitely a good answer to this coming demand in the market. So we are very, very confident on this point.
And the tuition fees actually are super affordable as well compared to other countries, right? Because the master degree in France costs like less than 5,000 euros per year, and almost zero for European students. So compared to the US or the UK, actually it's super affordable. So I agree with you clearly. And And Emmanuel Macron wants to have 30,000 students from India by 2030 as well, on top of the 500,000 foreign students.
Yeah.
So,
one of the key drivers is also the for we have had historical students coming from Africa, from French-speaking countries. One of the key driving elements of the growth in the future is going to be the course availability of courses taught in English, and those are developing. I would say so. We anticipate a significant increase in the future. On your second question, how you mentioned maybe how is the market dependent on the on international students? I would say that it is probably less dependent than other markets. We have the bulk of the students still coming from France, from different regions. If I can give you maybe an example, in our brand Axco that we have all across France for more standard residences, we have close to 90% French residents. So that's also a specific of the French market, probably. In bigger cities and in more high-end products such as ECLA, we have close to 80% foreign students residing. So I would say it's going to be important for the development of higher end PBSA, more centrally located, or maybe in bigger cities. But overall, in the French market, the main driving force is still the domestic market.
yeah, great.
Move on to the product itself now. Have you observed any trends in the size of the products, the amenities being on offer, or other elements in projects that have basically opened in recent years? So are tenants showing a willingness to pay more for services or amenities? Ramon, if we could start with you.
Yes, and the first service that we are offering is an easy, straightforward process to get a flat, basically. In some cities, it's not so straightforward. If you are a student coming from the other side of France or from another country, you want to move to Paris. Good luck. It's not an easy process. So I would say the first thing that we're offering is the ease of finding accommodation, and that's reflected in the prices of the rents. In the most tense markets, there is a higher decorrelation of rents in PBSA rather than the general market, and also so that's the first thing. Second thing is that competition is increasing with the arrival of my colleagues here and other people investing in the market, and so the products are getting more refined, and so we are competing to provide the best amenities. So now things that are getting standard are always gym, Wi-Fi. We like to differentiate ourselves with extra services, like for instance cinemas in some of the residences. But yeah, I mean that is definitely a trend, offering more.
Yeah, and on that, I think the new basically standard is like you have 1.5 to 2.5 square meters of common areas per room, basically. And that's why actually the product is getting much better with like more amenities and more services. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, people are willing to pay a bit more because they don't have to pay for their gym facility out of the asset. They don't have to pay for many things like, their internet box or whatever. Everything is included already. So it's much more convenient for them.
And that's
Yeah,
also, that's all, sorry,
Yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
no,
Go
go.
ahead.
No, go.
No, I mean, something that is proving that offering more services is obviously in the end ultimately is something that the client is also looking for, is the success of our concept, ECLA, which was launched in 2018. At first, it was a strange, it was a UFO in the PBSA, in the French PBSA market. We offer 4,000 square meters of amenities, in pretty big residences. But if I look at the figures, now we have three schemes open. One of them is the largest residence in Europe with 1,800 beds, and all of them are full. So means that those kind of product proposition are appealing to people, especially international people.
Maybe on my side, I would just like to mention that that's exactly what we've seen on our European operation. Parto is currently operating 17 residents all over Europe. And we've seen that with all the amenity that we are providing, we are seeing a lot of interest from all the students. So most of our residents are completely full. And what is interesting is to see that the most important amenity that is provided is a security for the student, having someone who's speaking English at the reception, and also all the study room. So it's really quite basic, but that's something which was not provided, for instance, in the French market. And that's what we are pushing in our scheme that we are currently developing. And then we are targeting between 2 and 3 square meters of amenities per bed. So that's a bit more than what Sebastian was mentioning. And what is important in that is that obviously, as you have a lot of amenities, you have a lot of people inside the building. It means that you have a lot of OPEX, and then as you have a lot of OPEX, then you need a big scale to be able to have a good NOI at the end of the day. So that's why we are targeting more than 500 beds schemes. And that's why you are seeing, I think, on the market, increasing number of units per schemes.
Yeah, and I mean I would say the area of amenities depends as well on the location, right? Because if you're a bit in a remote location with like nothing on your scheme, you tend to have more internally than externally. But if you're in the city center of Paris or Bordeaux, for example, surrounded by like bars, like gym facilities and so on, I mean, you can reduce a bit as well because people will tend to go outside for lunch or for dinner.
Agree. Yeah.
Encouraging to see how the product itself has evolved over the past couple of years. I'm being a little bit conscious of time. Let's jump to our final question. Now, this is a little bit tricky to answer. What is your investment outlook for the remainder of 2024 in the French student housing market? So we hear that the sentiment is shifting, but how likely do you foresee increased investment activity in 2025? And additionally, how significant of an increase do you expect? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe on our side, we have a strong conviction that this asset class will continue to grow and that investor will invest in this asset class. We are fully committed to continue to either forward fund some scheme that some real estate developer would like to sell, but also to convert by ourselves some building. As we were mentioning, we are fully. We really truly believe that refurbishment of former office building is really the future of this asset class, and especially when you are targeting net zero carbon for 2030. So fully strong conviction and really positive for the coming years on this market.
Thank you, Julian. Sebastian, if we could jump to you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I share the same view. Actually, we have never been more active than we are today. Actually, we see plenty of competitors coming to the market, which is a good sign because when people want to do the same, it's because it works most of the time. No, and what we can see that I would say the political climate actually is improving. It was a bit uncertain before the summer. It's getting better, even not perfect, but getting much better. And so we're super active both in like new schemes. But what we saw as well is that French developers struggle a lot, honestly. They have been through like difficult years and it's not going to stop over the next few months. I think that's going to pursue until like 2026 at least. So their stock actually of new product that fit our strategies is getting like shrunken over time. So it's one thing to have in mind. But at the same time, basically office conversions or any type of assets conversion is also very interesting. And so we tend to play on both, I would say, potential markets for that. Yeah.
Yeah, On our side, from Oxco, no, we actually I would share what Sebastian just said. So both growth paths are relevant for us. We've been investing for the past 5 years with Brookfield as our shareholder, on average to a bit more than 200 million per year. We are keeping on track to keeping on the same track. And what's good in the current environment is that developers are developers. They are offering. They are targeting block sales these days. So it means that we have maybe more opportunities in the market than we could have in the past. So our pipeline is pretty full, and yeah, we see. We have great ambitions for the future, and I think we'll find new projects in the coming months. So I think that's good for the market. It's there is a need for accommodation in France, and this need is getting actually more dire with lower amounts of people accessing credits for buying the first home. So that's more stock in the rental sector, and those are affecting indirectly the rents, the provision rates, and ultimately the demand for student accommodation. And I think we're here to serve that need.
Yeah, because with 17% like a provision rate, I mean, there is like a huge potential, right? And indeed excludes as well all the I would say public ones, right? So it's just a private ones like super limited. So yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. Let me take firstly the time to express on behalf of all of us to our esteemed panelists for your knowledge. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the insights and thank you for your time. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank everyone that attended today's webinar. We do hope that the data, the information, and the insights will be valuable to you in your activities and to your knowledge of the sector. So we look forward to the next webinars and to being in touch. Again, the deck and the recording will be shared over the next couple of days to you. And with this, I would like to say merci and bonne journée.
Merci.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.